So let's talk a little bit about the discourse in Israel about Judea and Samaria. One of the most striking things for me was the campaign supported by left-wing Israeli figures well known around the world, like the journalist Bергman and the historian Yuval Harari, that has fueled the settler violence narrative internationally. How do you view the role of the Israeli left in promoting the occupation narrative we talked about and the delegitimizing Israel worldwide? And how can we expect this narrative to be taken seriously abroad when Israeli left-wing organizations and even some Israelis promote the idea of occupation?
It is a serious problem. I don't think it's the preserve of the left. Unfortunately, language is very sloppily used across the political spectrum, and that fuels a great deal of the misinformation on these issues. And it presents ultimately that the biggest obstacle to ensuring that the international community is disabused of these falsehoods and is presented with the reality on the situation, because frequently the refrain will be, well, Jews tell me otherwise, or Israelis tell me otherwise. Ultimately,
you debated Gideon Levy, actually.
Is a perfect example of this. Yeah. But Gideon actually accepted, I think in the course of that debate, when Douglas put this to him, that you could fit the people who agree with him in Israel into a phone booth. So he is an extremist, and he recognizes that, at least he has that degree of introspection. But the real issue is sticking to, the realities of the situation. I do ultimately believe, despite this misinformation, that the truth will out. And I think the best way of explaining the situation is bringing people here, because when you are on the ground and you are discussing these issues with the communities who are living this day in, day out, and you are also traveling around to understand the geography of these fraught issues, then I think you realize that the narrative that is being sold, especially by the intellectual elites here, is unfortunately extremely misguided.
Again, the perspective of the outsider, how did the rising tension in Israeli society over the judicial system, the debate over the government's legitimacy now, come across to the outside world, do you think?
Oh, extremely badly. And it has damaged Israel's reputation internationally hugely. Again, unfortunately, this is, to my mind, as someone who has followed the debate around the need for judicial reform for some years, I'd say the better part of a decade, also recognizing that there was broad political consensus before the last election about what reforms were necessary, seeing that debate be hijacked in such a fashion and used not just by Israel's detractors, but I think also those who were swept up in this, essentially to badmouth Israel abroad and propagate and perpetuate those sorts of misrepresentations about it, is extremely distressing. Especially for those of us that understand the realities behind the proposals. And everything we've seen over the last 17 months of the unity that these horrific circumstances have engendered, I hope will continue. I know many people are suggesting that the divisions are poised to return, but one can only hope in these sorts of circumstances, I think.